Cool. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
There, yeah, we're live.
I want to welcome everybody out to the meeting for March 1st. We are meeting, obviously. Councilmember Wilson is with us tonight, obviously a little better. Councilmember Joe Paul is with us tonight. Looks like we're having a little problem with the mic. And Youth Councilmember Parker with us tonight. So we welcome you all. We're going to have to excuse Councilmember Jackson. She's not going to be able to join us tonight, so we'll just excuse her for tonight. We've asked Councilmember Joe Paul if he would go ahead and give us a moment of silence and the Pledge of Allegiance.
All right, if you'll please join me in a moment of silence. All right, thank you. And if you'll join me for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, we have only one consent item, Council. The approval of the January 4th, 2002 City Council meeting minutes. Any comments, questions about those minutes?
No.
Okay. Do I have a motion then to approve the consent item?
I move to approve the consent item of minutes.
Thank you, Diane. Okay, do I have a second?
Aye.
Okay, Randy, I heard you say aye. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, they are approved. Thank you. Now's the time for public comments. If you have something you would like to share, like to have a thought, please step up to the mic. We just ask you to give us your name and address. It's good to see you, Kevin.
Let's see.
Oh, we'll see. Okay.
My name's Kevin Homer. I live at 5398 South, 4000 West,
Perfect.
here in Roy. I want to take just a couple minutes and talk about expectations. My expectations are that everyone here, elected and appointed officials and all the staff, would act in an open, honest manner. As I look at the Utah State Code 52-4-100, which is the Open and Public Meetings Act, the second section of that talks about the intent of the Open Meetings Act. It says the intent of the legislature of this state, its agencies, and its public subdivision, which includes Roy City, A, take their actions openly, and B, conduct their deliberations openly. February 15th, 2 weeks ago, on the agenda was the discussion about resolutions 22-1 and 2 and 3. There was some discussion, and I appreciated that, but I felt like there was very little open and honest sharing of what was going on with the city council. When it came time to make a motion, there was a motion to accept the resolution. And the silence after that was absolutely deafening. It was interesting to me that the Ogden Standard in the newspaper a couple of days later had headline of the article was Roy City Council nixes plan for development. And twice in that article, they mentioned the silence and lack of discussion about that issue. All I want to do is convey to you my expectation that there be open and honest discussion, deliberation, and that each of you share what's going on in your head about not just that issue, but every single issue that comes before the city council. On that day, for that issue, I felt like there was a great lack of transparency. My expectation is open and honest discussion. I would just ask you all to please do better.
Thanks, Kevin. Okay. Would anybody else like to make a comment?
I'd comment on that, Mayor.
Go ahead.
The fact that nobody seconded a motion does not mean that this city council, that 4 members got together and illegally had a discussion and decided what to do before. So that's a big assumption to make. And that means just because you were silent again, doesn't mean that anybody did anything like that.
Well, doesn't discussion usually come after a motion is made and seconded, then there's discussion
Yes,
on the
and
motion?
some-
There was no
Yeah.
motion seconded. And furthermore, the developer got up and left right after it was silent. There was we were never invited to comment on it or anything. I was never asked my opinion by anybody. So I do take a little bit back of your expectations, because if people want conversation, it ought to be brought up. There was no second to the motion, so there was no discussion on the motion, and the developer left. It's done. And if we would have voted against it, they wouldn't be able to be back here tonight. It would have to go through the whole thing again. So not voting it in actually allowed them to make some changes and come back. So I feel like there was better justice than what you're giving us credit for. But, I'll take it under consideration, Kevin, because I appreciate you, but I think there's more to it than what you're presenting.
And then I'll fall on the new guy's sword. As I say, that was my 3rd time across the die. Understandably, I've looked back into code, having gone through that, and I do now understand that we can ask actually for dialogue from the developer to give feedback in terms of, what we would deem actually acceptable. So understanding that now, I will make a pledge to not try to do that in the future. So.
Mr. Blackburn, I was making no allegation of collusion. All I was saying was we were left with no information about what was going on with the council.
Well, I just want to make that perfectly clear,
And
because
I
that's the
do want to
impression.
as well.
That's the impression that I was left with, okay?
And I apologize, I didn't
And
mean
I
to
wanted to
convey
make it
that.
clear that I don't believe the council did that at all.
Yeah, I was not trying to convey that. But the lack of information, the lack of responses from the council leaves it way open to try to figure out what's going on. I had no idea. I felt like we were,
So maybe what I
That-
said will help clarify
Sure.
maybe an assumption that, you would have made. So that's why I,
So maybe the lack of comments from the council, my comments come from, I'm an elected official. I listen to my constituents, and there were many people that come out against that. There were way more that come out against the project as currently constituted versus the couple that come out for it. So I felt like I did my due justice. I listened to my people and voted the way the people spoke.
and what you just said there, I would have very much appreciated hearing that at some point during that meeting. That's good. You don't have to agree with me and the things that I propose or support or don't support. I just want to hear what's on your mind.
And I also have a comment to that. The Standard Examiner did reach out to me myself. I don't know about everybody else. They called an afternoon, and the next morning the article was written. By the time I got back to him, I was working. He had already done it. So that was why.
Yeah.
It was not even.
I think he reached out to everybody, but to my understanding, nobody was available at the time he called. And
Yeah.
instead of waiting to get a hold of somebody, just moved
He
forward with the article.
wrote the article the next morning.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
But that's all I ask is, please discuss it, please share what's on your minds. You don't have to agree with me, I just would like to hear what you all think.
Okay. Thank you, Kevin. Appreciate it. Anybody else like to share a thought? Can be anything you'd like to talk about. Okay, seeing none, we'll go ahead and move out of our public comment period. We do have some action items. Pretty excited about this day, okay? Hammond, you're going to step up and talk to us about this, this promotion.
So, Mayor and Council, it's a pleasure to be here before you today. I'm filling in for Chief Gwynn while he's taking care of his obligations down at the legislature. So here I have before you is Eric Gnuccio. He's been a police officer here for the last 2.5 years, but he spent 8.5 years before that at Ogden. He's one of our laterals that we were able to bring over a little while back. While he was at Ogden, he's done such things, and also at Roy, he's an intricate part of our training program. He's a taser instructor, a firearms instructor. He's also been very active in training our new officers that we've hired. He also serves on the Weber Metro SWAT team, where he's an assistant squad leader there. During our last round of testing process for sergeant, Eric was selected as our new sergeant. So we bring him here before you today to get sworn in, and then after he's sworn in, we also kind of would like to make these things a little more special and official. And so after he's sworn in, we're going to do a little badge pinning, and so he has selected his girlfriend Brittany, and if she'd like to come up here as well, she can be up here now. So we'll let him get sworn in, and then afterwards, she's going to change out his officer badge for this new shiny gold one as a sergeant, and we'll let that go forward. So turn it over to you, Brittany.
Okay.
Don't draw blood. We don't have a medic in the no medic in the crowd.
We didn't let her practice this before. We wanted to put her on the spot. They're harder to get on there than you think they are. And then before we let Sergeant Gnuccio off the hook, we'd like him to introduce the people that are here in his family that came here to support him. So, and we'll get you over here at the microphone for that.
Okay, so my girlfriend Brittany is here with me. We've been together for about 3.5 years now. I got my mom here in the gray. That's my mom Lynette. My dad Todd is in the red jacket, and then my sister Nikita is in the black shirt.
Congratulations.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Congratulations, Ari. Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty great. Okay, any other comments you'd like to share with this new sergeant?
No, that's
Keep up the good work.
Okay,
for our part for today. Thank you.
perfect. Thank you. Great job. Okay.
Steve wants me to take his.
I'm sure he does.
It might be really quick if I do it. So.
Oh, you're good. Okay, we do have some action items. Let's go ahead and work through those action items. Again, congratulations, Eric. Okay, we're excited for you. We got consideration of ordinance 22-1, which is amendment to the general plan future land use map from medium density single family, density single family and commercial to very high density multifamily residential at approximately 4863 South, 3500 West. So with that, Steve, you go ahead and want to walk us through this?
waiting for technology to catch up.
Okay, yeah.
There you go. It's
There we
behind you.
go.
Yeah, we're good. No, he's,
Yes. Oh, it's extended version of my screen, huh? Added bonus if you know what the band is over there.
Can I Google it? Does that count? Anyway.
There we go.
Okay. Okay, so as mentioned, this is for ordinance 22-1, and I'm going to kind of do it all at the same time because it's the same property. 22-1, 22-2, and 22-3.
Right.
So changing the general plan, a rezone, and then the rezone contingent on a development agreement. As we spoke last time during the meeting, the location of this is just south of Bridge Academy, in between Midland Drive and 3500 West. That's about approximately 4.7 acres of land. The two maps here, the future land use map, which is on my left, yep, everybody's left, is to change from commercial and medium density single family to very high density multifamily. And that's just a term the general plan has come up with, is very high. We've already kind of talked about it. Then the map on the right is the zoning map, so changing it from commercial to R3 multifamily. The housing types have changed a little bit. Again, there's no longer any townhomes or multifamily homes. They're just a single family. I believe they're still approximately about the same thing as over 2,000 square feet in livable space plus two-car garage is indicated. Here's kind of the concept site plan. It's kind of hard to see, but there are some parcels outlined in green that will be open. Some of it is because it's just space you can't put a home on because it's not wide or deep enough. And then there is an easement going across the property for a sewer line that's existing. So within the development agreement, they'll build 34 homes. They also, the developer understands that UDOT still has a game to play in this on the access to 35 as indicated in the map, and that if UDOT requires more land or requires a bigger opening, they may lose a property or two, but it won't be more than 34. So it'll be 34 or less. Again, UDOT will determine that aspect of the access point when they go to UDOT. Again, they'll provide about 29,000 square feet, which is just 0.67 acres of open space for the development. With that, the city would agree to the R3, allow for single-family homes on lots between 3,200 and 5,800 square feet, and then setbacks, reduction of that a bit from ranging from 5 to 3 feet, depending on what you're at. The Planning Commission did recommend the change to the general plan to very high density multifamily and the rezoned R3 with that a development agreement is brought into because of the kind of the changes to it, and our ordinance does allow for development agreements. One thing I didn't put in here, back in 2004 and before, the city had a code that they could use for developing difficult properties, which is called a planned residential unit development, or a PRUD, or in some cases, just a planned unit development, a PUD. Within those, they generally have allowances that city can do. If you're an R3, then here's the list of things that can be done, which kind of is above and beyond what the existing zone is. For some reason, in 2005, when the ordinance was revamped, they took out the PRUD section of the ordinance, but put in development agreement. A development agreement in this case, it really is just taking the place of the PRUD ordinance, allowing the council to, again, negotiate and to do things, get things, give things, just similar to the PRUD ordinance that would have been back in 2004 if we were here at that time. So staff does recommend approval of both, or all three of them, of the general plan amendment, the rezone amendment to the zoning map, and the development agreement. Any questions?
Thank you, Steve. For your edification, there are, at least I'm aware of, 3 of those PUDs. I like to call them PUDs. I see those often when I'm looking at Farmington's zoning ordinance, located in Roy today. There are actually 2 of them are south of the, well, actually, what do you call your place? Where you live, Randy?
Herefordshire?
Herefordshire.
Yeah.
So if you kind of go south this Herefordshire, you can see 2 of them there, and there's another one just off of 5600, close to about 2100. Nice places, obviously, seem to be very suited for the people who are living there. In fact, actually really nice places, the ones up by you, Randy. So those, we believe, actually were developed under the PUD, and then that was changed over to using, as Steve indicated, the development agreement that we use today. So, okay, thank you. We have obviously the developer here. We have the builder here. If this is going to be approved, if you have any questions, council, please ask any questions to Steve, to staff, to developer, whatever you feel like you'd like to talk about.
I just want to make some comments, not necessarily questions. I'm coming from a planning commission background. I'm not necessarily opposed to the concept. One of the couple of things I have is, and I know it's verbiage, but I've had multiple people try to trip me up on verbiage, because it says you're changing it from medium density single family residential to ultra high density multifamily. It's not a multifamily unit. It's also an R3 zone, and in an R3 zone, a single family residential is 1 unit per 6,000 square foot, which none of these meet that. I know we're zoning it as an R3, but really 90% of this doesn't even meet the R3 zone. I know that's the development agreement, but I think something we ought to take away as a council in the future is, if we see the need for these, which I believe there is, and there are other areas in Roy that we may want to consider creating something that actually describes what this is, because R3 doesn't describe it. It's not super high density multifamily. It's single family. It's not 6,000 square foot per unit. They're 3,200, between 3,200 and 30 or 50 something thousand or 50 something hundred square foot. That's my only concern is you're calling it one thing, but it's not really what you're calling it. Even when we talked about an R6, and I was told multiple times, well, this fits into an R6 zone. Well, really it doesn't, because you say it's 4.7 acres, and you say 4.7 acres, and you do the math, says you can do 34 units in 4.7 acres, but never have we considered the road, the curb and gutter, the sidewalks, the easements as part of property. I've personally sat on this council and on the planning commission where we've denied people subdivisions because they were 200 square feet short of meeting that zoning, and we've sent them walking away with their personal property that they couldn't do with it what they wanted. So, like I say, I just wanted that out because I do think the way it's presented and what it's called is really not what it is. That's probably covered under the development agreement that we just received, but I think in the future, if we're going to allow these, we ought to make it what it is, not what we take a zone and hack 90% of it out and then put a development agreement in it and say, okay, we're good with that. Just food for thought, coming from a planning commission background and being on the council where we've denied people the right to subdivide their property based off of setbacks and stuff like that. I mean, one of the things I took away from it personally, you want transparency, Kevin, there was a gentleman that sat in this room that pretty much was going to be told he had to tear the front of what he built off. Now, there's a whole myriad of issues with his development or his additions, but one of the ones is he was 16 foot into the setback, 25-foot setback. This whole development is 20 feet setback. And so I took it personal to think, okay, we're going to allow a development to come in here and amend zoning, but we're about ready to tell that guy, nope, get the construction saw out and start hacking the front of your house off. So if you want to know where I come from, that's my thinking behind it. And like I say, I'm not against it because I do believe there are places in need for things like this. I just think we ought to call, a chicken or an egg. That's my thought.
Okay, the council, any comments or questions?
Can you pull up the actual map of the development for me real quick, Steve? So we have the area that comes across the sewer that actually abuts up against Bridge Elementary, and this would be more of a question directed at the developer, because a lot of the concerns that the citizens brought up was the traffic that comes out of that school. Would you consider putting in, if Bridge Elementary was for it, a catwalk, although we'll use our Roy term, the catwalk to actually come into the property there? My rationale behind that is you basically have that open space. So parents could effectively park there against the open space. It wouldn't encroach upon any of the homeowners' driveways, and parents could actually quickly, safely, and easily pick up their kids, and it would give another exit for the traffic to go out. Go ahead.
The issue you're gonna have is this is a private road.
Right.
The property owners, I wouldn't say have the public go on someone else's property to pick up their kid.
Okay.
Yeah, and something I just thought about is we have a great thought, which it is, to say park next to the open space. That's not going to happen. They're going to park wherever they want to.
Yeah.
Because they're already doing it right now.
Right. I like I said, I'm just trying to.
And along with the width of the road, the fire department would require no parking on the street because it is.
True, because it's not the standard.
It's not, yeah.
Yeah.
The residents won't be parking on the street either, though, right? I mean,
That's
because that's
true.
what we've been told a couple
Again,
times.
the fire department still has to go through their complete
Right.
review, but the road width, they met with the fire department, and they told them this is what we need, and
Okay.
They're going strictly to that. Okay. Disregard.
So I guess I do have one question for the developer. If UDOT comes back and changes their thoughts of what your plans are, would you just redistribute that space over all the units, or would you just make the ones on the end bigger? What's your thought there?
Yeah, go ahead, yeah.
Yeah.
Michael Brodsky, 84 West, 4800 South in Murray. We've had some discussions with UDOT already, and we have a pretty good idea that what we have designed here provides a right-of-way for UDOT. If that right-of-way isn't significant enough, we can easily add some additional width to it by taking a foot or two out of the width of the lots all the way down the street. That will not impact the ability to provide a wide range of different housing types, but it would give us the ability to add additional width to the UDOT right-of-way.
So instead of taking out some units and making others bigger, you'd actually make more smaller.
Yes,
Lot size down, yeah.
yeah. And I'm hoping that we don't have to do that.
So am I.
And hope is not a good plan, by the way. We've had enough conversations with UDOT that I'm reasonably comfortable that the right-of-way we've provided here is sufficient. While I'm here, can I answer a few of the other questions you posed?
Please.
I found it interesting that there was discussion about my lack of follow-up after the last meeting, and I would like to just address that. Candidly, in the first place, I was stunned, and that shut me up. But more importantly, the decorum of a council meeting like this doesn't give a developer an opportunity to speak in the middle of a motion. And so, based on my limited experience over the last 50 years, I expected that I didn't have the opportunity to address you. That was why I didn't say it.
Which I respect that, because in the lack of emotion, I didn't feel like, usually you make a motion, and then you second it, and then discussion happens. With lack of emotion, I didn't think there was discussion either. So it's a mutual that you didn't feel like you had the place to discuss, and I didn't either. We've since learned, but.
A couple of other comments. As you're aware, this plan has been converted to all single-family homes, and the total density now is right over 7 units to an acre, which is the same as your R16 density. Agreed that the setbacks, the lot sizes don't meet the R16 requirements, and that's why we came in here with a development agreement. initially, when I first met with Steve, I was thinking that we could do this as a PUD, and when I realized that there was no PUD available in Roy, the next direction we went was we can do a development agreement. I had our council and Mr. Blackburn talk to each other, and we developed a development agreement based on those conversations. Yesterday and this morning, Mr. Blackburn has also spoken again to our attorney, made some red lines to the development agreement we had proposed. And I have Mr. Blackburn, I have a signed copy of the development agreement that in the event I get approved tonight, I want to leave with you for your review and consideration to get signed by the city.
And if that's the case, if it gets approved, we might have a change on that too, just a typographical.
The "of" that was missing?
Yes.
I didn't correct that, I'm sorry.
You got that? Great. If not, we have it here. We've got 6 copies up there. in front.
Okay, good,
Okay.
good. And the analogy of this to the gentleman who was in here last time, who did not have a building permit to make the changes he requested, did not have the correct side yard. I'm going through your entire process. I'm not presuming to start building something without the correct approvals and permits.
And that's why I made the statement. He's got a whole myriad of other things, but I'm looking, what stuck in my mind is setbacks.
Right.
Because we've denied subdivisions off of setbacks in the past.
Right, and until I'd actually had a conversation with Steve in terms of how like a PUD actually works, I was under the impression that we were granting basically the full development of variance. So, but no, as I say, with it being, it's not public road, so again, you can get away with that. Are you going to correct me, Andy? Go ahead. That's
No,
what
I'm
you're
not
here.
going to correct
Okay,
you.
all right.
But this is the way the code works here in this state. You can't really zone by contract, okay? But there is flexibility that's provided under certain circumstances. And in the code, then it says, unless it's gone through planning commission,
Right.
got a planning commission recommendation and come before the council. So when anything like that comes before the council, you can either accept it, you can deny it, or you can modify it. In this case, we modified what went through there. We haven't really added anything new because we already had the single family in there. We took that out, so it doesn't really,
Yeah.
and the other way would be fine too, if you were to take a look at this and say, hey, we need to create a new zone. But I believe this meets what's required under Utah code, and it's a way to do it. So,
Fair enough.
Okay, any other questions for Mike? Anything else?
I have one more comment.
Oh, please, go ahead, Mike.
The last thing I wanted to mention is that the plan that you've seen, we've made a few minor tweaks to it. And what changes we are proposing, and they're in the development agreement that I'm going to give you, provides the builder some more flexibility. Instead of having a row of all the same lot sizes, we were able to stagger the lot sizes so that it dramatically improves the streetscape when you don't have the same house repeated, cookie cutter next to each other. And so on the one hand, it provides the builder with the flexibility to be able to put a wider variety of houses in there. It also ties his hand a little bit because it means that he can't put the same house repeatedly down the street. So you end up with a much more attractive streetscape.
I appreciate that because I've looked at a couple of developments. There are some in our neighboring cities that are fairly similar to this, and that was one of the things that I noticed right off is each house was a little bit different as you drove down the street. Yeah, they're only 10 foot apart, but it doesn't look like it's a fixed development, so I appreciate that.
Thank you. That's the only comments I have.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions, council you might have?
Andy?
or have you?
Okay.
So the only thing that he's talking about is, I had added a paragraph to it, or
I was wondering,
added-
can you just tell us where that change is?
yeah, if you look at, that, you could give me that, Joe, I can tell you right where it's at.
The package I handed out that's in front of you has the changes in it.
I was just hoping for the Reader's Digest version of the changes.
If you look under the recitals, so I wanted to put in there a little statement that deals with purpose. So typically when you see whereas or your recitals, you're given a little information behind why you're doing what you're doing. So the last sentence, it's about 4 lines down. Joe, I'll give you this in a minute, but it
Fine.
says,
I got
the
one right
provision of flexibility promotes the city's interest in providing green space, diminishing water usage, and reducing commercial traffic in adjoining residential neighborhoods, thereby increasing property values. So I thought it was important that we had a statement of our purpose behind this too.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Diane, you have anything else you want to ask?
I think that's it now, thank you.
Okay.
I do have one more quick question. I don't know if it's even in here, been thought of. What is, so where you're butting up to other residential, what's the buffer? Are you proposing, you're putting in a fence as part of the development, or playing off of what existing fences are there? Do you know?
Typically, we would put a fence around the entire perimeter on both sides of the street, so on our property lines, and it would be a 6-foot vinyl fence.
Okay.
Okay.
On
Somebody-
the school side too, like
Yes,
the parking lot, okay.
yes.
Okay.
No, I appreciate that. Somebody asked that question. I'm like, I don't know what they do, but that's good. I appreciate that.
Okay. Any other comments? Any other questions, thoughts? Let me just share a couple of things before I ask for a motion. First thing is that this is an interesting piece of property. It's had quite a history, and I've been through this history with this property. And it's kind of changed a lot. Obviously, to be very honest with you, the school was somewhat unexpected. It's a great addition, okay, I think, to Roy City, but it did come as quite unexpected. In light of the fact is that it was zoned, and I remember very clearly in that meeting, it was zoned commercial. And there was always an expectation that some point in time we're going to get that Lowe's or that Home Depot to put in there. Thinking is because we had all that. And as much as we attempted in the past to bring a developer like that in, they did not want it. And we brought him in. If Randy was here, he can tell you about we bringing the guy out of Salt Lake up and had him go through there and look at that. And we just couldn't get that to commercial. Obviously put the school in, that was pretty good. It left this in a really interesting perspective. As you remember, about a year or so ago, we had a developer come in and made a recommendation for assisted living, 150-unit development. I think COVID kind of caught that one in a little bit of a difficult situation for that business, and as a result of that, it kind of slowed down. We now have a new idea, and this new idea would be is that make it much more fitting in this area with some type of a residential option. And the real benefit is as we heard from the residents that simply suggested is that they were concerned about, they kept referring to them as apartments, but they were really townhouses. And the townhouses seemed to be a little bit of a concern with some. And so I think the developer came in and simply says, okay, we have what appears to be single-family residential. It seemed like the single-family residential was what we heard. Reduce the traffic. Can you tell me what was the number of the units that were proposed the last time we looked at this?
It was 38 townhouses and 13 single-family homes.
Okay.
And it's now 34 single-family homes, and that's all.
So you've cut 20 units or so out of this conversation, and helping to then reduce the traffic if traffic was an issue, but more importantly, bring the single-family component back, because they kept saying single-family is suitable. I'll be honest with you, Council. It's an interesting piece of property. I will also tell you, and Steve, you can validate this. The original owner, the original person had an interest in this property as assisted living has come back, and they're interested. And along with that, there's a discussion that was been taking place recently about an office building being put at that same location. Okay, I mean, these are realities. The conversation are taking place, but in my mind's eye, and I've heard, I think, like you've heard from the residents, the best fit that they wanted was to bring single-family residential. And in my mind, if it's worth anything to you, is that I get kind of excited about this idea in large part because I think it provides then some options for some Roy residents that are going to be somewhat displaced here in a few months as a result of the widening of 56. I see there's a real option here, an opportunity. So we have some things we have to work through, and they're not necessarily easy, but they're important. So as you ponder now what you need to do and how you do this, just look at the whole piece. Look at everything that's been presented to you, and then take that in consideration, and use your best judgment in terms of how you see we need to move forward. So with that, unless there's any other comments or questions for Steve, the developer, or anybody else, I'd like to then have a motion to approve consideration of ordinance 22-1, amending the general plan, the future land use map from medium-density, single-family residential and commercial to very high-density, multifamily residential at approximately 4863 South, 3500 West.
So moved.
Okay, Diane, I have a motion to approve. Do I have a second?
Aye.
Okay, Randy gave me a second. This is a roll call vote, so please, if you will, Brittany?
Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul, Aye. Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul.
Aye.
Council, thank you. We appreciate that. With that then, we can move now to consideration of ordinance 22-2, which is amending the zoning map. We had to take care of the first one first, as you well know, Council, before we can approach the second. So therefore, any questions or comments relative to consideration of ordinance 22-2, which is amending of the zoning map from community commercial to R3?
I do have a question.
Please.
And it's about 22-3. So does the development agreement go with the property? So if they decide to sell and somebody else buys it, that development agreement stays? So because we are zoning at R3, somebody couldn't come in, buy it, and then put townhomes, and we couldn't do anything about it?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Okay, good question. Any other questions or comments?
Can I respond to that too?
I'm sorry.
Can I respond to that question?
Please.
So the development agreement not only, the development agreement very specifically refers to that configuration. And if somebody were to come in behind me and wants to build this, they are severely restricted. They have to build that configuration of lots. And so,
Or come back and amend it with your approval.
Go back through the whole process again.
Yeah. Okay, thank you, Mike. Any other questions or comments, Council? Okay, with that then, do I have a motion then to approve consideration of ordinance 22-2, amending the zoning map from community commercial to R3, which is multifamily residential at approximately 4863 South, 3500 West?
So moved.
Okay, Randy, thank you. Do I have a second?
Yes.
Thank you, Sophie. This is a roll call vote, so Brittany?
Councilmember Joe Paul,
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul. Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. And we now up to consideration for ordinance 22-3, development agreement between Roy City and Hamlet Development Corporation. That is the development agreement that's sitting in front of you. Council, any questions or comments about that? This is dealing with ordinance 22-3. Are we okay?
Yep.
Okay. With that then, do I have a motion then to approve ordinance 22-3, development agreement between Roy City and Hamlet Development Corporation?
So moved.
Thank you, Diane. Do I have a second?
Aye.
Randy? Thank you, Randy. Okay. This is a roll call vote. Please, Brittany?
Councilmember Wilson,
Aye.
Councilmember Sophie Paul, Aye. Councilmember Scadden,
Aye.
Councilmember Joe Paul.
Aye.
Okay, it's approved. Thank you, council. Thank you, Mike and team. Thanks, Steve, for the information.
Yeah, on time frame. I know you got a lot to still do, but what you're thinking?
our next process is to submit for preliminary subdivision approval to your staff. We've already ordered a survey and a geotech report because I was optimistic. And so that's a big part of the preparation we have to do in order to get the preliminary done. We have met with Steve and asked about timing. I think realistically, we're 90, maybe 120 days from today to have a final subdivision approval and be able to start working. And then at that point, it is somewhat dependent, more than somewhat, on Alpine as to how quickly they get through the development work and get that done. Typically on something like this, it's a single street. It shouldn't take them much more than 3, maybe even 4 months to get all of the improvements done. And then they're ready to start building houses. I expect in our current environment, they ought to be able to build this out in maybe 18 months.
Are you going to go after secondary water for in there?
I don't know the answer to that yet.
Okay.
They have to.
Great questions.
Thank you for taking the time to, take all of the opinions and be willing to rework this, and for coming back. Thank you.
Thank you.
Again, thank you. Yeah, your presentation, amazing. What you've brought, I'm excited to see what you're going to bring to our city. It'll be exciting.
I think you'll be very happy with it. And I believe that partnering with Alpine to build the houses was the right thing to do. They've got a lot of good product. One of the things in the staff package you received, we've shown you architecture of what they have currently in their product line, but they've committed to me that they are willing to develop 1 or 2 new houses to fit this community. So you may get a wider variety than what I've already shown you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
so
Mike.
much.
Thank you very much.
Okay. City manager report.
Yeah, Mayor and City Council, I do have a couple of things for you tonight. We have a couple of members of our Parks and Recreation crew that have gone out and was certified to do safety inspections on our playgrounds. So they're doing a self-audit right now. They've already identified places where we could need improvement and other areas that they feel like we need to close down at this time. I don't have those. We're not talking about a whole park or anything like that, but maybe close down a slide or something like that, or take down a swing or something like that. I don't have what it is right now. They're currently doing it, but I wanted to bring it to your attention in case you get feedback of what's happening in our parks. So they're really just looking at the safety aspects. But it's wonderful to have crews to take it upon themselves to go to the training and get certified by themselves. That was something that they went out and did. So actually, in our last city council meeting, Nevaeh, you mentioned about feeding the different sporting teams. Ironically enough, yesterday I received an email to feed the lacrosse team. So I wanted to have a general conversation about this. The Roy High and high schools in general, they basically have 3 different seasons, fall, winter, and the spring. Right now is the tryout time for lacrosse, which is more of a spring sport. So we identified how many students we have in each of these seasons. It's about 250. In order to feed 250 people, if we got permission that we could still do it, we do hamburgers and hot dogs with our grills. It would be about $2,000 for each time we do it. So I wanted to have a discussion to let the lacrosse team and also put it out there for we'd only do it one time and have all the spring sports come together and feed them all in one night. Wanted to get your guys' idea on that.
Do we have a budget to do spring, fall, and winter sports?
So we don't
to
have
do
it
each one of them?
identified in the budget right now, but we do have council contingency of $20,000 that's in the legislative budget that we could take it out of. There's plenty of money in there.
If we budgeted 2,000 for every sport or every season.
And right now, we're only 2,000 until the new budget cycle anyway.
Okay.
So what I hear you saying is that this would be in addition then? The spring sports would be in addition?
Yeah, yep, it'd be an addition, because typically we did the fall, and it was primarily with the football team. We would identify just one day that we would feed all fall sports, and they're all welcome to come. One day to do the winter sports.
And
then
is
one
that
for the spring.
sports only, or would that be teams, including academic teams?
I think that would be more up to your guys' discretion.
I think
of
that's a
how
great
far-
idea.
Yeah.
Academic teams.
To where we could just host a dinner at
Mm.
night, and we have those 2 big grills, and I think the biggest thing is just getting a head count, so.
Okay, what's your thoughts on that, council?
Food good, I'm fine with it.
I believe that if we're going, that does kind of balance it out, and if the students are willing to spend the time and energy to be part of a team, which with us being a one-school town, also represents us as a city, I think that support, but I do believe it should include a wider variety of teams.
Both sports and academics.
Yes.
Okay,
I think
Great
you
idea.
could call it clubs is what they, yeah.
Okay.
okay.
Yeah.
So if
And
we,
divide it out, so that they're not all showing up at the football night,
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think especially if the lacrosse team reached out, that means that they would love city support. And so, like you said about it being like just we have that one school, I think it would be awesome. And you could just say that it's from the city, and it would just be really encouraging for all
Yeah.
the teams. And I agree with the academic teams as well. So,
and you can help us kind of get the message out to
yes, I
make that
definitely
connection?
can. I was going to say I can help with the head count. We could do an announcement during our announcement time at school. We do it on Mondays, so next Monday even, or just whenever we need to get it out, I can help.
So we
with that.
can look for a date and then
Yeah,
start getting head
definitely.
counts and
Okay,
stuff
could
moving
you,
forward.
then, Matt, would you work with her and see if we
Absolutely.
can get the numbers and see how that works?
That'd be great.
We'd be happy to.
Council, you okay with all that?
great.
To clarify, does that mean going in future, we would have fall and spring
I
too
will,
then?
yeah,
or-
I'd put in the budget for next year, and then we can, if we wanted to have that discussion, we can. But yeah, you can include that in the budget.
Okay. Okay, you okay with that? Okay, I think you got a green light on that one.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Okay, perfect. And then one last thing, we also spoke about in the previous city council meeting about the estimated monthly cost of utilities. So I broke out the main things that we'd be paying for to go monthly. There's an opposite side of this, so there's also a savings to going in certain areas of what we've been doing with the electronic metering. The big thing is the data center, that's who sends out our utility bills, credit card fees, because if people are paying monthly versus bi-monthly, and then the express bill pay. That is actually our online payment service. They actually process those payments for us. Just so you know, the majority of people actually use that service, so quite wonderful. The overall cost of that is about $75,000 for the extra 6 months, so that's about $12,500 a month. But we also save that we used to hire people to go around and walk the streets to read those meters, and that's why we were doing it bi-monthly, is it would really take them 2 months to go through the city and read the meters. And so right now they can go through and then just do that within a matter of hours in a truck, and they just drive through the city streets and it will electronically read. So you do have a savings of those part-time people. Budgeted, it's $38,000. That was budgeted for a year for those meter readers. And then there's also a big lag time. What Brittany could speak to this being in the utility department, but we typically we're not able to read during the winter. So October to May, we're not able to read the meters, and so you could literally have a toilet going the entire time or something, or something going on to where you get a good $1,000 bill because you're wasting a lot of water. We would be able to read all winter long with this. So it will be monthly, and then every month they'll go through and read the meters. So that's an advantage to doing it as well. One other small caveat, it was from the financial end in the past, when we're doing bonding and things, talking about liquidity with the funds, they do like monthly reads on those bonding issuances, so.
Okay, great information. Council, any comments to what you've been told by the city manager?
It's about an even,
Yeah, it's
a wash.
between between a head count going out and getting the meter read and us going and collecting it monthly now
Yeah.
is what it equates to.
Okay, thank
And
you.
where does that fit in for the cost of the meters? Will we ever be able to make up that cost, or is that just a fixed cost that will never really be realized with the benefit?
For the actual payment of the new meters.
That I know has already been
Yeah, it's
paid
already
for,
been
but will that
Yeah.
ever be realized?
It would take a long time to realize that, yes. You're right on that.
Yeah. Okay. Council, do you have any comments, questions you'd like to make? Anything you'd like to see done in the city? Kind of direct the city manager to kind of do something? Anything you feel you'd like to talk about? Got some options here.
Had something.
Please.
I wasn't sure if to bring this up here, but I don't know. I guess it's kind of a city matter in a way. It's about us, like maybe a youth Instagram page for like Roy City Youth.
Yes.
I was thinking something like that could be beneficial, just to get the word out for different events going on, maybe like more towards the summer if we have events going on for that. Or just like updates that are pertaining to youth or high school students. I don't know. I was thinking something like that, and I would be willing to like oversee that. I just wanted to present it to see what you guys thought about it.
Okay, comments? Council, what do you think?
Yes, is the tech guy on the council, go to town, so.
I
Awesome.
don't even know if we have a city Instagram. We have a city.
Yeah.
I was gonna ask.
Yeah, we
about
have a
that.
city Facebook.
Okay.
We have multiple
I'm
city
not on
Facebooks, but
Well, there's
recreation, fire, police, Roy City
each department.
has.
None of your high schoolers have Facebook.
I do not have
Come
Facebook,
to the modern
No.
age.
unfortunately.
Only their moms.
Instagram
Yeah.
is Facebook, but that's okay. We won't go there.
Okay,
So.
okay. Well, our Facebook, Instagram. being,
Instagram,
like,
yes.
Maybe we better have a Twitter account too.
No.
I'll
okay.
tweet all day.
That's okay. I was thinking just start small, maybe just Instagram right now.
Totally cool.
I don't know. Yeah, if that's something. I mean, I wasn't quite sure the content to put on it yet. But like I said, I think just having it there, I can figure out some. I'm sure there's
And
things.
who would that be approved through? Because whenever we make something that is officially from the city, that needs to go through.
Yeah, there is an
Official.
approval process
Okay.
with that. So if it's coming from the city, then yes, and it's an easy process. So.
Okay.
So,
But I
so
can
would
get
you be
with
okay then, just kind of drafting up some ideas?
Yeah,
And then would you get that
definitely.
to Matt? And then, let's go ahead and we'll sit down in a council and just review those after we look at the details, and we say it's a go, we'll make it happen.
For sure.
What's
Okay.
your general feel for interest
For the page or just. I
for
think.
response and interest from the youth and the students?
Well, from asking them what I've got, like responses or sorry.
Right, will they be interested in what you have to say on this Instagram page?
I really think so. I think it would be good to just even have a space to go to for people if they had any questions or just like comments about different things, just rather than like maybe emailing the city itself, maybe going to a place that's more comfortable, like Instagram where everyone's on it anyways, just having that.
Well,
Yeah.
then making like the content in terms of just like the events that are going on at the school,
Right.
or all the different
I
schools,
mean,
right?
yeah.
We got 2 junior highs. We've
Right,
got,
it could be it could be like a collective thing
Yeah.
just around the city, just any events going on.
Yeah.
And I think it would be good for Roy Days too.
for sure.
It could just get the word out of like times
right.
and just everything. I think that could be really good.
Yeah.
To have
Perfect.
That place, so.
I like it.
'Kay,
Yeah, it's great.
wonderful.
Okay, give us some of your ideas. Let's just put them on paper. Get them to Matt. Let's see what we can do. Obviously, if there's a way we can make it happen, council, and if you like what you see, let's do this. I think it's a great idea.
'Kay.
I've always said, and you heard me when we had our first meeting, we're building your future. What you decide to do as a youth in terms of the future of Roy City is we can make those things happen now because it is really in the hands of the youth. So let's figure out how we can do that best, okay?
Awesome. Thank
We're
you.
excited.
I'm
Thank you.
ready.
Okay, council, any other thoughts, questions? Okay, I just got a couple of things. You've probably seen an email from me that talked about water. We do need to get some weather. Let me make that absolutely clear. We are heading towards another serious drought. And right now, the water people who basically manage the water in behalf of the Wasatch Front are looking at some serious options in terms of what we have to do to prepare for that. And some of that's going to be coming, to be very honest with you, in terms of cutting back and restrictions on secondary water, and it would not surprise me on culinary water. So we've got to work through that, okay? So be aware of it. More is coming. I would like, if it's okay, now that the legislators will be done on Friday, Council, you okay for our next meeting? I'd like to bring the Weber Water District in to talk about Flip Your Strip. And you can ask some questions, kind of get a good feel for that before we basically decide whether we want to sign up or not. So, but if you're okay with that, I'll make that
Do
happen
you know
for our
of
next
any
meeting.
others that have signed up already, other cities?
Yeah, there has been a number of them, and they kind of get a report on that in the paper. But if you'd like, I'll ask John to make sure he kind of tells us that too, because some of it's happening in Davis County, but there's a few in Weber County have already signed up.
I believe it was Layton and Washington Terrace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is the two that I know of.
But there was one just recent, and I thought it was South Ogden. I think they just signed up as well. Okay, so that's good information to have. Let me just cover it, and Brittany got a request from an individual. I really expected to hear a comment today in the meeting. I don't want to take a lot of time, but the conversation was more about the Woodbury patch pad we got sitting out in front of Harmon's. Just so you understand where that's been and where it's taking place, the RDA board a long time ago, basically a few years ago, went in there in 2009, and they basically agreed to go ahead and use RDA funds to take that old Chinese buffet facility down.
2019, not 9.
2019, I'm sorry. Okay.
Just a small.
No, it's a good one because that's a long period.
10 years that you
this is
in city government.
yeah. This agreement is not supposed to last that long. So you're absolutely right. 2019, but the agreement basically was that the RDA board would go ahead and make arrangements to help pay to have that facility removed, with an anticipation that would be brought either with some new type of development. It's a nice piece of property. And that was the plan. There had been some approaches that have come recently in terms of doing stuff, but that's still not firmed. And so we reached the terms of the agreement, and I'll just make sure you understand the terms of the agreement. It basically says if they don't have a development in motion by the January 1st of 2022, then the expectation would be is that the Woodbury's in this case would pay back to the RDA board, okay, the money that was spent to do that. And that money is due on January 1st, 2023. I have sent a letter to Woodbury and notified them that they need to be in compliance with that agreement, and they've agreed to more or less do that. So just recognize the fact is that it's in motion. If there's any questions about any of that kind of stuff, not only you should ask that and we'll let you know, anybody will let you know, but surely the public, it's all free information. If they ask, we'll tell them exactly where we are. So that's what we have.
So does that mean that the agreement expired January 1st, 2022?
Yes.
And they have 1 year to pay it?
Right.
But what if they come compliant within that 1 year?
Now, it has to be based on the RDA board's approval. At this moment in the letter, I made a comment that says if they want to submit a proposal that's going to be a sales tax generating business at that location, then they have to approach the RDA board, and the RDA board has to agree to get them out of that money invested. If the RDA board simply says no, the agreement was set for the end of virtually the end of 2021, or in this case, on that date, then they're expected under the agreement to pay back that money was invested. It surely makes it much better, attractive, much more compelling, in my opinion, would be is had Woodbury simply was to sell that property instead of wanting to lease it, it would have been sold a long time ago. But they're really adamant about wanting to lease. So again, we invite the public to ask questions, and we're going to provide answers to the questions that are asked. But other than that, Council, I don't have anything else. Anything else before we ask for a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Okay, I got a motion to adjourn, okay, by Joe. Do I have a second?
Second it?
Oh, I was getting a little nervous.
I
was getting nervous.
I was like, let's see if Diane does it.
I got it, Diane. Okay, all in favor?
Don't want to go home.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, okay? And thanks for joining us tonight. Now, Matt?
Danny.
What? Oh, I know. They're cards to get into the building.
Okay.
Pay you into everything, so don't lose it.
They're
Okay.
super access cards.
I'll get with you in just one second.
Yes. Even though I got one from IT already, it just doesn't have my name and yeah.
events, we
Wow.
know that they want to see our city ID.
Do what? What did I do now?
So I asked, I said, can we get like this?
No, it's optional. 100% optional.
Work ID with a badge, and so I come back, when we were in DC, they wanted our city ID. And I'm